What's up, everybody? Welcome to Gojo with Mike Golick Jr. That is me. With me, as always, super producer extraordinaire and a man that is now fresh off celebrating his anniversary, Brandon Newman. Brandon, what's going on?
Nothing much, Mike. Fresh off some sex. No, I'm joking. Just some dinner. Just some dinner. We have kids.
Congrats on the sex. Congrats to the wonderful man who runs the Out of Context Gojo account for now getting to reset the Brandon being horny on main meter at 0 days without an incident. We had a great show for you guys today. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review Gojo, leave us a 5-star rating and a review, and check us out on the DraftKings YouTube channel under the Gojo with Mike Golick Jr. tab. We appreciate everyone that has gone over and see the visual product that we're trying to put on. We're going to keep trying to make that better and better as we go along here. Awesome show coming up today. We have got a lot of people mad online about the World Baseball Classic. We have certainly got our fair share of March Madness headlines to get to. Michael Jordan running from the grind, and Jimmy Butler using music as punishment. So, Brandon, before we get to all that, though, March Madness is where we have to start, and I didn't realize how pervasive the basketball feeling was. Having the first day of March Madness kicking off yesterday got me so hyped that I went back and actually looked and noticed that my high school basketball team is getting ready to play in the state championship this weekend, so even high school March Madness has taken over my life. I had no idea how they had done or what their record was this season, and now as Northwest Catholic gets set to take on our rival East Catholic for the first time ever in a state championship game at Mohegan Sun down in Uncasville, Connecticut on March 18th. Very excited for the Lions and hoping they can pull it off there. John Marabello, whose name is on the court at Northwest Catholic, all-time great coach. He actually, cool for us, got to be one of the coaches in the McDonald's All-American game a few years ago, so has gotten the national recognition he deserves for being a baller out there. So salute to Coach Marabello on that one, but that's how deep the basketball is running right now.
The basketball is running deep in the CT, though.
Hey, listen, we were a basketball school. We were good at football when I was there. We've been a basketball school. People who know, which is very few people because this is Central Connecticut high school basketball.
So in your high school, basketball was treated like football in Texas and Florida?
As close as you were going to get to that. No sports received that level of treatment, but if you were going to get close, it was going to be on the basketball team there. But this is now March for those reasons, all that excitement. And you and I were talking about this before the show. Walking into March Madness, whether you're just a general fan of the sport, just a person who likes to fill out brackets for an office pool, outside of adults playing golf, like amateurs playing golf, is the place where people walk in with the most unearned confidence of expectations in the world of sports. Like, most of us haven't watched a ton of college basketball going into March. Because if there's any tournament, by the way, that does not reward you for knowing a lot about your sport, it's this one. For all the reasons that we're going to talk about in a sport where chaos and upsets and the math almost always throw some funk into this, I see very little reason. Like, the people who watch college basketball all year round just have to flat out love it. Because if you're watching it to try and gain some sort of edge when it comes to the postseason, it's a fool's errand because this is all a crapshoot.
Mike, like many years in the past, my bracket is busted day one. One of the big mistakes and big upsets happened. And I had Arizona in the final game, national championship game. This is all shambles. Like, I can't even. You talked about the confidence walking into it. Just like you're pissed off that you didn't, score a 70 or shoot a 70 when you're playing golf. Like, I'm still upset that I don't know college basketball, regardless of the fact that I haven't watched any of it.
That's what I mean. Year. It's unearned arrogance with these brackets. We get our hopes built up the same way me, who plays golf maybe 7 times a year, somehow still slams my club head into the ground after I inevitably shank 4 shots in a hole and just end up playing right along the cart path because that's where I'm whooping my ball's ass to. I somehow still get mad, even though I, a person who put my 10,000 hours in to be okay in a different sport, have put nowhere near that much work into golf or into studying college basketball. You walk into both situations with all of this unearned arrogance. It's incredible.
Yeah, I just like random love for specific teams or just dumb strategy. Like on one half of the bracket, Mike, I just picked all upsets outside of some, Houston chalk.
You know what? With that in mind, Brandon, why don't we get to it? As we cover college basketball, It's time for This Is March, since that's all we sit around and wait to get off. If there's one most common tweet sent out as mayhem erupts in college basketball, it's This Is March. I want to break it down into 3 categories for us as we go through here. We're going to have mayhem, crunch time, and meltdown. Some of those might sound similar. We'll explain how they can be different. But it feels right as we go through, because those seem like the things we generally tend to see, generally tend to love, especially early on in the tournament for March Madness. And so starting off with the mayhem is where we have to after yesterday, because we got the payday we were looking for early on here. Furman and Princeton, come on down to the party, baby. Pulling off upsets against Virginia and Arizona, respectively, on day one, giving us the double-digit seeds, making and raising hell like we were hoping for here. First one came up in the day was Furman, the Paladins, which they put Dins on the jersey, which seems strange.
Dins.
Like, I saw Roger Sherman from The Ringer talking about this. Instead of the pals or the lads, they go with the Dins instead of any of the rest of that. So strange choice already.
I don't hate it. It reminds me of like a man cave.
For anyone that's wondering, a paladin, also called the 12 Peers, are 12 legendary knights, the foremost members of Charlemagne's court in the 8th century. They are apparently in French culture what the Knights of the Round Table are to King Arthur and that sort of tale. And so they represent these sort of like knights of Christianity in that sort of French realm. So that is the Paladins, and that is the team that knocked off Virginia.
Ass.
It came in incredibly dramatic.
Ascot.
What?
That's good. Ascot. Let's go. Go ahead. Keep going.
Jesus Christ.
Mascots that I don't agree with. Ascots. Go ahead.
Why did you just burp that out?
Because I wanted to shit on it the entire time, and then you said Christian Knights, and I was like, oh man.
I mean, you can listen. I understand,
but I said what I said. Ascots. Go ahead.
You've got to shit on it. It's objectively bad mascot, and that's probably why it took them 50 years between NCAA tournament wins before this one here. It ended up coming on. JP Pegues ends up being the guy who's going to have his name etched in the record books here. There was an interception off of a Kihei Clark pass. And for people unfamiliar with Virginia basketball, Kihei Clark was one of the stars of the team that won a national championship a few years ago. He's a guy who just played. This is his last game in a Virginia Cavaliers uniform, and I'm devastated for him. Caroline Darney, who's a great friend of mine, who writes over at Bet for the Win, who's a proud Virginia alum, who used to, I think, write for Streak the Lawn, their SB Nation site, loves the Cavaliers and has always spoken so highly of Kihei Clark, what an outstanding young man he is, what he's meant for that team. Not the biggest guy in the world, but we've seen is such a floor leader for them. And in that critical moment, a situation that he's probably drilled 100 times, Brandon, where they were getting trapped by Furman down to the other end. Furman really for the back half of that game had come out and played some weird zone for most of the rest of the game. They played like a 1-3-1 that helped get them into this. And at the end of the game, they're full court trapping Virginia, and they get Kihei Clark in the corner. And with only a few seconds left, the shot gets hit with 2.2 seconds to go. And so the interception happens with like 5 or 6 seconds left. Kihei Clark essentially pops the top off the grenade and just lobs the ball towards half court when he gets trapped over there in a panicked move, as I heard a lot of the announcers break down after. Would have worked had you just thrown the ball as high as humanly possible instead of just trying to launch it as far as humanly possible. Your goal is to eat time off the clock in that moment if you can just try and get it over half court. And instead, Garrett Hine intercepts the pass, gets it to JP Pegues, and the rest is history there. And so now, unfortunately, Kihei Clark, who was instrumental to a national championship team, has to have that be the last time he's in a Cavaliers uniform. So I hope he holds his head up high. I think walking out of there a champion, there's so much that from the Virginia side is going to get talked about now with this team, with Tony Bennett as their head coach, with the fact that this is 5 years to the day, the anniversary, or that was 5 years to the day, the anniversary of their loss, their upset 1-16 game against UMBC. And they now have first round exits in I think 3 of the last 4 years outside of that national championship run. We talked about this relative to teams like the Rams and the Bucks. I'm sorry. That run matters. I get that the tournament is incredibly random and it's not always totally indicative of who the best team is, but Tony Bennett won a fucking national championship and so did Kihei Clark, and that has to mean something. It's the goal of all this. And so for the people that want to line up and slander all of them, yes, I get the first round exits aren't pretty because of the style Virginia basketball plays. Slow, prodding, celebrating shot clock violations, all the things that we know about them. You still won it all. And if you've won it all in the last decade, in the last 5 years, it's more than most others could dream of. And so that should buy you a little more leeway than it feels like they're getting.
Yeah, Mike, but everyone's hot right now. Everyone's upset right now. Everyone's brackets busted. Money has been spent and flushed down the toilet. So I can understand the heat right now, Mike, but I'm with you. If you won a national championship, even like coming from our perspective as Notre Dame football players, the fact that we have been in the dance in the semifinals since they've introduced this playoff system makes me feel like we can hold an argument with anybody because like we've been there, and Virginia and I was only there. They won the whole thing.
Completely agree. Like I would phrase it like this, and Notre Dame football is a great example. Been a almost constant contender for the last decade and a half. If they haven't been in the college football playoff, they've been around it. They've been around the conversation with 2 national championship appearances in a 10-year span. I'm not even saying for the team I played for. I'm saying if you gave Notre Dame 1 national championship in that time period and then told me we probably wouldn't even make a bowl for the rest of those years, I'd sacrifice all of that. I would sacrifice every one of those good to great years for 1 year where they actually got to the mountaintop, and I would do it in a heartbeat. Wouldn't even think twice about it. And that's essentially where Virginia basketball has found themselves. And I shouldn't even say that because they've been incredibly competitive. It's not like they've been a team that's been completely out of the mix in the ACC or not making the NCAA tournament. So I think that's a great example to bring up from the Virginia side, comparing that to Notre Dame. From the Furman side, they're exactly what we all talk about and what we talked with Nicole Arbach about earlier in the week as far as lower seeded teams that can make something happen, right? Incredibly successful during the regular season, had won 28-7 during the regular season, had won 15 of their last 16 games as they get set to move on and play San Diego State, who we'll talk about shortly. But that game especially, you look at Pegues, who hit the shot. He had missed his previous 3 3-pointers in the game, but he was their leader in 3-pointers on the season. So team that was playing against a slow prodder that can go and knock down threes from distance in a game that was always going to be close because that's how Virginia plays. That's the formula for upsets in this tournament. And so while it was still stunning, it can't seem overly surprising. And I mentioned his name already. Shout out to Roger Sherman, who did call that one, I believe, in the week leading up to it. So nailed that one. Congratulations to the Pals. Even though their mascot is bad. They were just the first upset of the day. We had Princeton knocking off Arizona as the second upset of the day. And this one was cool for them. Mitch Henderson, their head coach, was on the Princeton team 30 plus years ago that upset UCLA when he was a player. And so now to be a part of 2 of the bigger, or if not biggest moments in Princeton, modern Princeton hoops as a player and as a coach is a pretty incredible feeling. They're the 15 seed that upset Arizona 59-55. And we talked about how ugly Virginia basketball can be at certain times. When you looked at that game, the final score of that game was 68-67. So it got a little hairy. Again, Furman threw some weird stuff at him zone-wise. This Princeton-Arizona game was ugly as sin. Because when we talked about the stuff that you would generally tend to have to do as a lower seed to knock people off, Princeton was down by 10 points with 8 minutes to play. They did not make a free throw until there was 21 seconds left in the game. Like, to ice the game was essentially when they got to the lines. Both teams shot single-digit free throw attempts. Princeton was 4 of 25 from 3-point range in this game. The other side, you had Arizona, who was also hot garbage. I'll pull up the shooting numbers here in just a second. So yeah, in this game, Princeton shot 16% from three. Arizona shot 18% from three. They were 3 of 16. Arizona was 4 of 7 from the free throw line. Princeton was 3 of 5. It was a gross game across the board for both of these teams, but gross always favors the underdog. And if you're looking to be a 15 seed that pops this thing off, that's usually how that's going to go, which apparently happens a lot now, Brandon. There were 4 15-over-2 upsets in the first 27 years of the 64-team bracket. There have now been 7 15-over-2 upsets in the last 10 tournaments, according to Roger Sherman over at The Ringer.
And this is the wrong one to happen, Mike. I saw, CBS Sports posted this. After that upset, now there's only 0.12% perfect brackets remaining in the entire, I guess in the March Madness pool. And I guess, yeah, we're all in it. Like I had Arizona in the final game, like I said before. Like I'm happy that Princeton was the one to do it, but it's just, every year.
It's a fun reminder of what this tournament is. Arizona, coming off of winning the Pac-12, is now going home in a game where you saw bigger, faster, stronger. I mean, for Christ's sake, I think Princeton had 6 blocks in this game. Like I said, if you get blocked by a Princeton basketball player, no offense to the Princeton hoops teams, you should never live that down. Like, Brandon, there are certain things like getting tackled with the punter in a game that are going to get run back in film whenever they watch this after all the pain over and over and over again. Because if you're getting it served up like that when you're supposed to be one of the best athletes in the country on one of the best teams in the country, you shouldn't be allowed to live that down from another teammate standpoint. Not from us. I'm saying from the people that love you most, because that's usually where it comes from.
Yeah, Mike, but I feel like this game, most of these teams that do the upset thing, they keep it close the entire time. Early on in the game, when Princeton had only scored 2 points, and Arizona was like creeping up to double digits. I was like, okay, this is exactly what we thought it was going to be. And nope, I ain't going to lie, had me in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, I don't know how. I mean, well, I guess I do know how it happened, because watching that game, I mean, Arizona for long stretches there offensively, it was gross and it looked out of control. It was ugly. Things weren't going in. So it gave us the juice to start the day. I think both of those happening relatively early on in the day's games too was also a nice shot of life into this thing. It's what we needed. What we talked about, volume shooting on the first couple of days. So yeah, those are the ones that hurt the brackets pretty bad. What's your final 4 in your bracket, Brandon? For anyone that missed it, we ended up setting up our bracket group on the NCAA bracket app. Shout out and thank you to everyone who joined in. We had 234 of you join the Gojo podcast bracket. Excited to have you. Brandon, you filled out your bracket very last minute, gave it the old college try. And so for anyone that missed it, our bracket challenge bet between me and you for whoever ends up with the better bracket, the winner obviously gets bragging rights. The loser has to go and redo pro day back in South Bend at Notre Dame, doing the bench press, the 40-yard dash, the 3-cone and short shuttle, and the vertical and broad jump. So my final 4 is Alabama, Marquette, Texas, and Kansas, all of whom at this point are still intact. What about you?
Arizona, Duke, Texas, UCLA.
Okay, so you've already got, and you said Arizona was in your championship game, right? I have Bama and Texas, so you've got one of your championship appearing teams out already.
Yes, thank you for laying it out there that way. I know. I do.
All right, you know what?
UCLA's got to go all the way, and I'm not going to jinx them, but we'll let March play out.
Yeah, this truly is March. So go Bruins for you. Roll damn Tide and Rock Chalk on my side of things. Brandon, let's get to crunch time and give a little bit of love to the fighting Stormy Bond and Tony's. San Diego State got a win. Unfortunately, I had picked College of Charleston. That was going to be one of my 12-5 upsets. One of those where a lot of times I'll pick schools where I had friends go. I picked Maryland to win against West Virginia because of Dominique Foxworth. My friends, the Perianos, had 2 of their kids go to college at Charleston, so was rooting for them. And we had talked to Nicole. They had won over 30 games during the regular season. Veteran team, had a guy that used to wear an eye patch. But instead what we get in crunch time is San Diego State pulling out a tough one and giving the Mountain West their first win in the NCAA tournament as a conference since 2017. They had been 0 for their previous 8 first-round games since then, and Utah State had lost earlier in the day too, so good on the Aztecs for making this happen for the Mountain West so they can finally show their face around the Final Four again.
It's embarrassing. Yes, shouts out to them, but also the person that won the Pac-12 just got bounced out. So I don't really know how the conference pride works during the tourney like this.
I'm never one for conference pride anyway. Again, the Notre Dame factor doesn't really matter to me, but I do like the Mountain West. I have a soft spot for the Group of 5 conferences, and so seeing them get nice things, seeing them enjoy happiness, even if it came at my expense, and even if I thought it came at the expense of some very shoddy officiating at the end of that game, which I'm sure this won't be the last time we say that in the NCAA tournament, water being wet. Brandon, let's get to the meltdown at the end of this, though. On the way into the tournament, Grand Canyon, who had been part of a 5-team parlay that made me a good bit of money when I was in Dodge City helping open up the DraftKings sportsbook at the Boot Hill Casino, Grand Canyon, thank you very much on that, was making their way to the NCAA tournament. They were flying out to Phoenix to get ready to play their game. They got there, but unfortunately, for their first day of practice, all 12 bags of their equipment, including practice gear, uniforms, and shoes, didn't make it there. And so players were practicing in T-shirts from the WAC championship, jerseys from the Regis basketball team where they were playing. The stuff was going to get there later on. They had come there again, winning the WAC. They beat Southern Utah pretty handily in that game. But tough look for the equipment staff there, man. Your team goes, does their business, handles it in the conference tournament. You're showing up to the big dance. And I'm sure there's a lot of pressure being a small school, making your way to the big dance, wanting to seem like you belong, wanting to go and act like you belong, wanting to show your kids a great time because it's an incredible reward for them. Even if a lot of these small teams, mid-majors, end up losing in the first round, making the tournament is a badge of honor. It's a banner you get to hang up inside your gym forevermore and say you were a part of this kind of team. And so you want to make it kind of like a bowl game in college. It's supposed to be a reward for hard work done, and it is tough to feel like you're getting that reward when you're practicing in another team's jersey.
I just can't believe this, Mike. Like, I know the angst of packing you for yourself. Like, am I going to leave something? Doing it for an entire team and then dropping the ball. The amount of like finger pointing that happened after this, like the emails. Like, I feel bad for the business side. As somebody who used to work on a coaching staff in college football, I was on Ball State's coaching staff for a year. This was the ball was dropped. Excuse the
the March Madness pun. I feel terrible for the equipment manager here. Shout out to our boy Ryan Grooms, one of our great friends and former Notre Dame equipment manager. Would have never happened on Ryan's watch, but I know the anxiety that comes with so much of this because there is so much shit that you've got to remember. Now, less so a bit, and this sounds like it was probably out of his control just because of travel and the way things worked out. But for a basketball team, you at least got comparatively fewer guys. Like you said, the anxiety that has to go on when, as we're getting ready to go on the road, it's on Friday as we're getting ready, Thursday we're getting done with package, you get these big duffel bags in front of your locker where you got to put all the stuff that you want to make the trip for the road game. So your pads, knee braces, cleats, wrist guards, any special shit you need has to be in there. And my OCD was never at a higher, more fevered pitch than right before then. Because if you get there and you're going through your bag and all of a sudden something on there, that's on your ass. And you can try and if you're lucky, and if you've got an equipment manager who's cool as hell like Grooms, they might be able to help you out on some stuff. But a lot of times you're just up shit's creek. And that's probably, honestly, the birthplace of all of those nightmares that I have where I'm showing up to the football field without my helmet or pads and I'm forced to stare my position coach in the eye who hasn't coached me in a decade and tell him why I don't have the necessary equipment to play the football game. That's probably what this all goes back to.
Nightmare fuel stuff. But like Grand Canyon went out there and proved, it's just basketball, put Calvin Cambridge it, or whatever. Like Mike, just just go out there, hoop. You got t-shirts on. We'll play Regis jerseys until our stuff gets here.
That's the Jersey version of we'll play them in the parking lot. We don't give a shit. We don't need these bright lights. So good luck to Grand Canyon. Hope you're able to overcome that. Respond to adversity, sudden change, sports cliche. Brandon, speaking of March Madness, let's get to an update our Some Shining Moments bracket. So Yesterday we made the debut, Some Shining Moments, a collection of 32 of the biggest moments from the last year, March to March, that we have ranked, seeded, sorted into regions, and are now going to have to play for the title of number one moment in the last year. We got off to the first region yesterday, the North region, which is the sports region. The results, shocking, were as follows.
Can't believe it.
Stunned.
So y'all hating. Y'all hating. Everybody on Twitter who is engaged in this, and I thank all of you, thousands upon thousands, so many people. I couldn't even count how many people were voting on moment after moment. But all y'all are hating, and we'll get to it.
You're going to keep workshopping that Trump impression until it shines, and I'm rooting for you. The hate Brandon's referring to is as follows. In the round of 32, the 1-8 matchup in the sports region, Tom Brady's retirement saga versus the Aaron Judge home run race. With 3,868 votes, the 8th seed, Aaron Judge home run race, moves on to the Sweet 16. Stunning upset for what could have been the 1 overall seed in the tournament. No surprise here. Best moment, 4,003 votes. The 3-6 matchup, the Kelsey brothers, with 68.8% of the vote, move on over the Brooklyn Nets implosion at the 6th seed. Expected that one. Kelsey's had a dynamite year. Yeah. With 2,896 votes, better moment between the 4 seed World Cup final and the 5 seed Georgia football, 2-time back-to-back champions. 77.5% of the vote went to the World Cup. Wow. I have a feeling that 4 seed, as Jess Smetana predicted, could be in for a bit of a run. And the last one, much to Brandon's dismay, with 2,973 votes, the 7 seed, Brock Purdy's season, 51.3% of the vote, upsets number 2, LeBron James, passing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for the NBA's all-time leading scoring title. Lakers fan Brandon Newman, how mad are you?
He doesn't even do this. Like, he's not even a scorer. Like how Kobe said he's a shooting guard, so the only thing he does is guard and shoot. Like, LeBron James is just a team player. He's up there in assists, as your dad pointed out. Like, he's just a kid from Akron. And he climbed the highest mountaintop of surpassing Kareem, and y'all disrespectful Twitter thumb users trying to say that Brock Purdy's moment was bigger than LeBron. Ugh! Y'all still mad about the moment. Y'all still mad about the decision. Like, I agree that Brock Purdy's moment is a big shining star, but to put it over this historical moment in NBA basketball history is disrespectful. LeBron should smack all y'all.
I think it definitely is ground in being haters. If you were to go off the individual weight of each moment, right? San Francisco did not make it to the Super Bowl. They made it very far, farther than they should have, but ultimately didn't get to that point. But Brock Purdy, unexpected, all these different things. The only thing I could try and rationalize for people is that LeBron James passing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the manner in which he did, in a season that feels largely like a throwaway, in one where the Lakers have not been incredibly competitive all year long, could be the justification, even if I look at this and say it should be about the fact that for his career, he accomplished this. He was supposed to come into the NBA and be the next Michael Jordan, and has been so much that he also became the next Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and now will likely put this record so far out of reach that no one's going to get it. It's wildly impressive, but like a lot of other of LeBron's accomplishments, I feel like we've gone noseblind to it. We've gone numb to it.
I'll say this. This is the same reason why I think Brooklyn implosion lost to the Kelsey brothers. LeBron passing Kareem had been telegraphed for months.
Sure.
Almost seasons, right? And then especially this year and this month, it was something we talked about over and over again. Brock Purdy end up being the starter and end up being one of the more entertaining quarterbacks in the back half of the NFL season, I respect that moment.
Yeah, people love underdog shit too. I mean, we had to go through that whole process of people wanting to assign much more credit to Brock Purdy than he likely deserved in the middle of that 49ers machine. He was very good, but people were trying to act like he was the second coming, and that wasn't necessarily the case, and I feel like that probably bled over a little bit. So either way, the people get to vote. Democracy has spoken, and so that's who we've got moving on here. Again, we will have Judge's home run race, the Kelsey brothers, the World Cup final, and Brock Purdy's season. Moving on to the Sweet 16 out of that reason. Brandon, up next, we have got the music region, which I believe, as I consult the Oracle right now, is technically the East region of this. Yes. And the matchups are going to be as follows. Again, at Gojo Show on Twitter, these will be posted, attaches to when we post the podcast in the morning. It'll have the poll that'll stay up and run and give all of you a chance to potentially pick another upset like we saw a couple of in the early rounds for this tournament. The music region matchups are as follows, Brandon. The 1 seed, Taylor Swift's Midnight Saga. So I looked at that as including the release of Midnights, the announcing of the tour, and the Ticketmaster debacle kind of all merged into one. You could put just the Midnights album release, staying up till midnight, had the extra couple of tracks released at 3 a.m. You could do that, and I'd still think it would qualify as the 1 seed.
Well, that's why I'm a little bit upset with this, Mike, because via Taylor Swift's Instagram yesterday, this is a saga that continues. So I feel it has a little bit, I guess the Tom Brady's as well, retirement saga. Like that's still, the 1 seeds are 1 seeds for a reason. Yeah,
we used moments very loosely in this draft. Again, we're workshopping all of this on the fly. Leave us alone. It's going up against the 8 seed, the Wednesday Addams dance scene that turned into a viral TikTok sensation, which is part of why it's on here. Something that goes viral and has its moment like that. Again, very much the 8 seed in this category. I don't think should have much trouble. The 3-6 matchup is where it gets interesting. The Rihanna Super Bowl halftime show that doubled as a second pregnancy announcement for Rihanna. The 3 seed going up against the 6 seed, Lizzo playing James Madison's Crystal Flute. A moment that pissed off racists everywhere, that had us learning a lot more about old crystal instruments than we ever once knew, going up against a moment that had way too many people jumping to ask the question, is she pregnant in public, before they were told the answer, in a way that, again, everyone, always, never be first to market on again. But once we got that word from her camp, turned into one of the coolest pregnancy announcements that's ever been done in the midst of an incredibly entertaining Super Bowl halftime show from one of the most beloved artists on the planet who we hadn't heard from in God knows how long. If you can't tell, I think Rihanna should probably win in this one, even if I love Lizzo, appreciate all of the positivity that she brings into the world, and the fact that we have got a modern pop artist, whatever you want to call Lizzo, who also happens to be a classically trained flautist.
Yeah, to the point where she can play one straight out of the trophy case, and it sounded like it doesn't even need to be tuned. Like, yes, I'm torn with this one, Mike, because of the complexities of history being made on both ends. Obviously, with the second child from Rihanna, and first single artist, all the things that Rihanna did. But Lizzo playing that flute, man, that was a moment. Rihanna's the giant here, but Lizzo could sleep. I'm interested in what the people have to say.
That'll be I think the Rihanna's hers the Navy. Is that her online group of fans?
Sure.
I forget if it was an Army or a Navy, but either way, I think they're going to show up in full force. I think she is going to do well in this, but a matchup where I feel bad. Lizzo is one of the, like we said about Florida Atlantic, lower seed that could have come in, could have been one of the teams to win in the tournament, but is also going up against a red hot team in the 8 seed in Memphis, and so you feel less good about their chances. The 4-5 matchup, the 4 seed, this is one that's got potential also. Oliver Shane Hawkins, the son of the late Taylor Hawkins from the Foo Fighters, playing alongside the Foo Fighters in the concert that was commemorating his father's life. An incredibly emotional moment with the entire band, with anybody who watched it. That is the 4 seed going up against Harry's House, Harry Styles' newest and latest solo venture, an incredible album, tons of fun, saw him live in concert. Harry's great. I just don't think he has what it takes to overcome such an emotional moment, even if Music for a Sushi Restaurant kicks whole helpings of ass.
I feel like people are going to see Harry's House and think of Harry's moment. And between that and Don't Worry, Darling.
Yeah, that's...
America is... we're little slores for entertainment that entertains and, have less sympathy for the heart-clenching moments. So we'll see. I agree with you, though.
Yeah, I mean, having it be on There Goes My Hero and him just it's 16-year-old crushing that drum set, how it had to be for the rest of that band to all be looking at him and seeing I can't even talk about it too much now because I will start getting emotional again. So we will move on to the 2-7 matchup to finish this off. Beyonce's Renaissance going up at the 2 seed against the 7 seed Corn Kid. And Jess is right. Looking back on it, Corn Kid should have been seated higher. That was a mistake by the committee, but here we are. That was, for a lot of the summer, early into football season, that was an international sensation. It was a big lump with knobs, and it had the juice, and it's unfortunately, I think, going to get drubbed by Beyonce.
I have no idea what Corn Kid is.
You don't know what Corn Kid is?
No idea.
What do you do all day?
I, put my son down for naps and, feed the children and do this stuff, or the back end of this stuff. Edit the pod, post it, YouTube, edit YouTube, post it.
All right, hold on. I'm going to play you a snippet of this.
For me, I really like corn.
What do you like about corn?
Ever since I was told that corn was real, it tasted good.
Did you think corn wasn't real?
But when I tried it with butter, everything changed. I love corn. Corn.
Do you think everyone should be eating corn?
No, not everyone has to like it to be the best.
Yeah.
Everyone just has to try it. Have a bite.
What else are your favorite things?
I play a variety of games. Hide and seek, tag, double lava monster. Yeah, mostly corn. Then look at this then. I can't imagine a more beautiful thing. It's corn. Look at this.
It's corn!
Because corn is awesome.
Can you describe corn to someone who's never tasted it before?
A big lump with knobs. It has the juice. It's the part that mostly makes me like the corn.
How much do you think corn should cost?
So that was the interview with Corn Kid that ended up sparking a viral song that sounds like this.
A song?
Oh, Brandon, is there a song? I can't believe you. There was TikTok ran wild with
For me, I really like corn.
What do you like about corn?
It's corn. A big lump with knobs. It has the juice. I can't imagine a more beautiful thing. It's corn. I can tell you all about it. Look at this thing. When I tried it, I don't anything changed. What the best thing about corn?
Bro, I cannot believe you missed this entire section of God's internet. I am going to spam
Never.
you with all of the various remixes. Every genre of
Please
music
don't.
took a turn at the Corn
Oh
Kid
my
song.
gosh.
That is the 7th
Of-
seed that's going up against Renaissance.
Yeah, it's not going to stand a chance. But I'm happy to say there's only one other thing on this entire bracket that I have no idea about, and we'll get there when we get there. Something about a slap or something. But go ahead.
At Gojo Show on Twitter. All of these will be up when the podcast posts in the morning. You will have your chance to vote. I'm sure I will hear from a lot of people about the way that this is seated, and we will go from there. Brandon, one other thing that we need to get to.
What's that?
Did you see our boy Jared Carrabis having to fight the good fight, defending the World Baseball Classic against the likes of KFC from Barstool, Keith Olbermann, and everyone else shaking their fists at the sky after Edwin Díaz tore his patella tendon, celebrating, not even playing in the World Baseball Classic. He had just gone out there and dealt in a 5-2 win that was going to send Puerto Rico to the quarterfinals after beating the Dominican Republic. And then all of a sudden you see Edwin Díaz, who was a sensation last year and is now a $20 million a year closer for the Mets, who had all these expectations. Steve Cohen signing everything and everybody, spending money like it's going out of style. And now every Mets fan that feels Kurtz, like every Jets fan who assumes that this is all going to go wrong with Aaron Rodgers, is feeling like shit. And that was where a source of a lot of the anger came for, I know, KFC, who's a Mets fan, who came out and basically, like Olbermann and like any of the other people that were angry with this, tried to say that the World Baseball Classic doesn't actually mean anything and that these guys shouldn't be playing in this weeks before the season gets started, instead of the teams that actually pay their salaries and the seasons where we expect things from these professionals here. Now, what I'd say is I do not agree. Like, there seem to be a lot of guys that really love the World Baseball Classic, a lot of players that have been playing in this. It seems to have actually created a lot of buzz around the sport. I haven't checked in for much of it yet, but it's allowing all these guys to go back and play for their home country. There's rules about, you got to have at least one grandparent that was from there, has got a birth certificate from there, but we've seen all these different guys. Shohei Ohtani's out dealing, throwing gas right now for the Japanese team. We've seen Mike Trout out there playing meaningful baseball and tournament standpoint that we don't get to see during Major League Baseball season, so we should probably cherish that.
It's the baseball's Olympics with an audience. Like, yeah, I would think we have to respect that, and also of the things that happen that that results in injury and it shouldn't have happened. I'm sure OKC is looking at their team now and they're like, if we had Chet Holmgren, if he didn't play in that little basketball pickup game in Seattle against LeBron James's team. So like, so I'm saying, like, you can't stop people from having injuries, but to completely poo-poo on something that's important to a lot of people that can't afford to be the thing that's even funding these contracts for the Major League Baseball, like, just chill.
The timing of it does suck to have it this close to the start of the season, because I'm sure every organization is holding their breath. Like, at the very least, and like we've always said, you mentioned the pickup runs that a lot of basketball players play. That was the first thing I thought of, where guys go out, they're going to play basketball. They're going to, at least when they go to a lot of these pro-ams and pickup places, be playing against other pros, other high-level basketball players, and so you're not out there in a situation where you can have bad players tripping the athletes, as Mike Tomlin used to always say. So I look at it from that standpoint and I say, yes, these are sports that you can really only get better at by playing. This is an opportunity that comes around. It's a once every 4 years tournament. There is the national pride that is similar to what we have in the Olympics, what we've got in things like the World Cup, all the above. And so it's hard to get mad. And in this case, because he was not hurt actually playing. He was hurt celebrating after the game. They're jumping up and down in a circle, and then next thing you know here, he's down on a heap. Like, this could have been an injury he got stepping off of the curb. And so I understand you're increasing the amount of opportunities that there are for this kind of injury, playing this kind of tournament when you're having it. But I can't be the person sitting here saying shut the whole thing down because a guy happened to have a freak injury celebrating. Sometimes bad things just happen. I understand Mets fans feeling like it just happens to them way too much, and here we go again.
And they're not wrong. They're not wrong.
Oh, no, they are definitely cursed.
Yeah, like, this is, like, but that's the thing. There's so much money has been spent on the Metropolitans at this point in time. You have other things to focus on. While he gets healed up, and by the time you actually need a closer, maybe he'll be ready for you.
And it's one of those things. So the injury, he underwent surgery on Thursday, and they didn't get into specifics, but they said the timeline for this is usually about 8 months for recovery. So it's terrible. Like, it is legitimately terrible for the Mets, for everybody. Like, there's the chance of, a freak athlete could come back earlier from this, but the whole point still remains that this isn't like when in contracts that players have in other sports where they don't want you skiing or going and riding a motorcycle or doing things that are outside of the purview of your sport. I struggle to look at this and say, yeah, you got to shut this down. This is some systemic problem, other than this is unfortunate and it just happened to happen at the World Baseball Classic that's going on right now.
I would actually be interested in seeing how many players who participate in the World Baseball Classic push back if they actually started to try to make this serious. Like if they actually, and also they weren't talking about it going away. Some people were talking about using it as a forum to showcase college players or maybe high school major league or that type of level of talent. But I feel like the players want to play as much as the fans want to see them play.
Well, and that was part of KFC's argument was, if this is just about your enjoyment of the game, you should be able to enjoy it as a baseball diehard with amateurs out there, with college players out there. Like, it's not. It is partially about growing the game. It's a different venue. Anytime you can wrap the flag of whoever your nation is around the players, it automatically creates a different level of buy-in and interest. We see it happen long before soccer was actually popular on U.S. shores. We would all rally around the World Cup or the Olympics because we love rooting for the colors that our country wears. Same as all these guys from other countries. And so that's going to bring a different section of the audience to this. And if you get to see, like we said with Mike Trout, you never get to see him play meaningful baseball. That's awesome to get a chance for that. It's awesome for more people to get to see Shohei Ohtani be incredible. He's the best thing baseball has going for it. You should want to put him in as many places as possible right now. And so I can't look at that and say, yeah, it would be the same and you would get the same out of it with amateurs there. No, you are trying to increase the reach of this. It could potentially help you bring more fans back to Major League Baseball. But even if that's not the point, like you said, it's also something that clearly these guys don't have to play in either. Like, these guys are all rich enough to where if they wanted to say no, I'm sure they could say no. But instead, they decided to go out here and play this. Yes, like they could say no.
Right.
So it seems a bit ridiculous to get this mad about something because of what is ultimately a freak accident. So wish Edwin Díaz well. We hope we get to see him back out there. We hope his recovery time ends up being faster. But Mets fans, I'm so sorry. Mr. Met, Mrs. Met, shield your eyes. I hope your marriage can survive this.
Man. You see how, I mean, I just have to say it now. See how thick Miss Met is? Have you seen?
Yes, Brandon, I've seen.
Okay. I mean, cakes, strawberry shortcakes over there.
Jesus Christ.
What? You can't objectify mascots?
Usually not. No, I mean, she's a baseball.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I see. I was thinking general, gender neutral objectifying. Like now, I feel a little dirty. But I was just thinking of it like as a sexy baseball, like a Lola Bunny baseball. I'm sorry, that's too far.
Oh my God. A man who announced that he had sex at the very beginning of this podcast somehow did not have his horniest moment until about 50 minutes in. Brandon, you would have loved during football season. My college football booth with Learfield did a series on mascot infidelity among mascot couples in college football.
Oh man. How dirty was it? Like, was it some messy stuff?
So the Arizona Wildcat mascots ended up being the ones that we kind of looked at. Oddly enough, on the day that Arizona ends up losing, the Wildcat mascots are Wilbur the Wildcat. And I think it's Wilbur and Wilma is his wife's name. Okay. And there's some pretty like scandalous pictures of the missus and like the Oregon Duck that I've seen, the Sun Devil that I've seen. Pac-12 After Dark flirty? Is for the grown and sexy.
It's one of those like Mr. Steel Girl situations.
Very much so. I think Ryan Nanny from the Full Cast had the theory that she might be in an open relationship. Like, I don't want to judge
Just
anyone's.
kinda like, yeah,
I don't
that
want to
makes
judge
sense.
anyone's situation because that just might be how they get down, right? Like, it's not like Mr. and Mrs. Wolf, who are the NC State mascots, are legally married. Like, I don't even know if the Arizona mascots are married, but the Wake Forest Demon Deacon actually married Mr. and Mrs. Wolf at NC State. So hits a little bit different then because all of a sudden there's a ring on it. I don't think there's kids involved, but there could be. So you never want to see that.
But I just had a theory. Because if you ever been in a two-man scheme or a two-man con, I just saw Ocean's 13 recently, so I've been thinking about con games. And the Migos famously said, friends try to send a thought. That's the only way to plot. So maybe Wilma is going in and distracting, Mona Lisa, the Lil Wayne and Kendrick Lamar songs. Like maybe she's doing a little sleight of hand, and Wilbur's coming in the back and cleaning out pockets and wallets and homes and safes. You know what I'm saying?
It could. You know what? Did not think of that one. Could absolutely be that one. Also, I don't want to yuck anybody's yum here. If Wilma is exploring her sexual liberation, then go off and do what you want. Not going to knock that at all again if that's their relationship.
Sure.
And even if there's infidelity, as long as there's no kids involved, that's for them to figure out. That's not for me to figure out. And the same goes for Mr. and Mrs. Met. Now, the Mrs. would imply that they are married. I haven't seen the ceremony, and I don't see any little baseballs running around. So, again, that's for everyone else to decide here.
They're called T-balls.
Brandon, do you know what time it is?
This, that, and the third. It's that and the third.
That's the right song to sing after we talked about mascots being horny. Been a long week if y'all can't tell here. We really needed at Gojo Show on Twitter. Hit us with the mascot couple that you're most worried about maybe fooling around a little bit. We need to revive this series. I'm going to go back and look at the investigative reporting that we did on this and find out who else might have been out here cheating. There's a bunch of ones that are siblings too, and now, I'm not saying like that. I'm saying that they're not doing anything together. Jesus Christ. Simmer.
Hey, I don't know. You've done the research. I don't know.
If you have done the research, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and review Gojo. Leave us a 5-star rating and a review. Tell Brandon what a great job he's done being horny on Maine today. Brandon, speaking of someone that you're often horny on Maine for, let's get to this. This, that, and the third. 3 quick stories to get us out of here.
What is this?
The Raiders. Very curious last couple of days.
Yes.
On Thursday, it was announced that the Raiders would be pushing back Jimmy Garoppolo's introductory press conference until at least Friday. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo had been seen all over the Raiders' social media on Thursday, going into the building, reuniting with guys like Jacoby Myers, who signed out there, with Philip Dorsett, with Josh McDaniels, who he played with the New England Patriots. But while everyone else was announced, and while Jimmy Garoppolo was supposed to be announced as a signing, he has not actually signed his contract. Again, as part of the legal tampering period, he agreed to terms earlier in the week, but pen hasn't been put to paper yet. And so now everyone's trying to figure out what's happened. There's a lot of people wondering if this was a Carlos Correa situation where he had potentially failed his physical. According to Jeff Howe and Vic Taffer over at The Athletic, the Raiders, or a source with knowledge of the situation, said it is, quote, all good, and then insinuates the belief that an agreement between Garoppolo and the Raiders is still finalized, and wonders if this could be about certain injury guaranteed money in the contract that had $33.75 million guaranteed at signing. But either way, this has now at least opened the door, and as you're listening to this podcast Friday, we'll see if this is dated by then or not. But Brandon, it opens the door for the possibility that this might go sideways for the Raiders at a time where Aaron Rodgers has still not technically put pen to paper with the New York Jets yet, as he's in limbo with the Packers, as Lamar Jackson is still waiting out there in the wing, as the Raiders have the 7th overall pick in the draft. And so it would certainly be dicey territory for them if this were to somehow fall through, but there are cards still left to play technically, even if they were one of the teams to say that they weren't going to be in business with Lamar Jackson. If being at the 7th draft pick in a draft where we expect a lot of these quarterbacks to go in the top 5 still has you on the outside looking in, they're at least not totally up Schitt's Creek. They're just partially there if this fails.
Mike, speaking of Alex Correa, I feel like Jimmy G is going to end up back with the 49ers. He's going to take that backup deal that he had. Again, he's like, you know what? Let's just try it again. I'll get my incentives on the back end when I'm the most healthy quarterback until I'm not for the 49ers again. I probably shouldn't read into this, but this does not give me a good feeling because ever since you brought up Mike McDaniel and Josh McDaniels, I've been afraid to say Josh McDaniels' name because F you for doing that to me. But I don't trust him, and I feel like something's in the works. Something bad's in the works.
You're not the only one that probably feels bad because I just remember and was reading in The Athletic too. This happened to the Raiders in 2014 when they went to sign Roger Saffold, the offensive lineman. And then on the day his press conference was scheduled, they conducted a physical. And apparently there was an issue with Stafford's shoulder that made them uncomfortable. And so they backed out of the deal. The news conference was canceled and Saffold re-signed and played all 16 games with the Rams during that season. And you got to remember in the backdrop of all this too, when it comes with uncomfortable guarantees, you're dealing with Mark Davis, who relative to the rest of the owners in the NFL does not have a lot of money. Like he is not one of the real rich guys in this league. And so the Raiders often run into problems about how much cash they actually have on them. We always think about this in terms of the salary cap and just things like that. For the Raiders, it's often, no, how much money do we actually have to put into these things? And that becomes the issue that could be part of this here, where if another team, if it was borderline, might overlook Mark Davis with his financial situation, may not feel as comfortable doing so.
Did you hear that quote from Tim Brown talking about Mark Davis's daddy, Al?
No.
He was on some podcast, obviously Notre Dame great, Tim Brown, was on some podcast saying that Al Davis didn't want players to really perform at their highest level. Like he said, because he felt like that means other teams will want you and they'd have to either lose you or have to pay up to keep you. And he said for on the offensive side of the ball, he was able to affect the plays going over correctly and where the ball went to tamper, to like basically dampen the offense's effectiveness. But on the defense side of the ball, they were running around like madmen, and they ended up, setting the tone in the NFL because they couldn't be told what to do. But they were doing it in spite of what Al Davis was telling them to do.
Yeah, for a guy who was also known for the moniker "Just Win," it definitely seems ironic, but it's something that I think fans and players of a lot of organizations are more aware of than note. The Bengals are another team that always falls into this category, where I've often heard from guys that played there that they are only concerned, ownership, with being good enough to put butts in seats and make money. And that's why seeing them spend for a guy like Orlando Brown in free agency is important. How they're going about getting ready with and what they do with Joe Burrow's contract is important, because you've got a quarterback that's willed them into places their franchise hasn't been in a long, long time. And it is the chance for that ownership group to show their fans that they are more serious about this than they've usually been. So sometimes perception is reality with some of these places. We'll wait and see if it's the case with the Raiders and this Jimmy G situation heading into Friday. Brandon, let's get to that. In the world of basketball, Charlotte Hornets owner Michael Jordan is engaged in serious talks to sell a majority stake in the franchise to a group led by Hornets minority owner Gabe Plotkin and Atlanta Hawks minority owner Rick Schnall, sources told ESPN on Thursday. Now, no deal's imminent, but there's significant momentum on a sale that would install those two as the co-governors, and if it's completed, Jordan would keep a minority stake in the franchise, but he would no longer be the majority owner as he's been since 2019. He is currently the only black majority owner in the NBA right now. And Brandon, there is no other way to really look at this. As we get towards the end of LeBron's career, as we have heard his ambitions to put a team in Las Vegas, heard his ambitions to be an owner, Michael Jordan running from the grind?
Oh yeah, he's ducking smoke for sure. But also at the same time, how surprised are all of us that it's taken this long for this news to come through? With all the big jeans, all the him being on the sideline, like all the stories that have come out about how I feel like tumultuous or like it sounds like it's been a heavy lift for him the entire time. And he's so rich, like why would he want this headache? Like I'm surprised it's been this long. He really does. He really must love the game.
It's so Wright Thompson wrote a great piece, which I mean, you could stop the sentence there and it would be true in almost every circumstance. But
right.
Wright Thompson wrote a great piece about Michael Jordan, about the competitive drive that lives inside him still to this day. It's why we see him still those, grainy shots or paparazzi shots of him challenging guys to one-on-one games and all these different bits of folklore that have been built into the Jordan narrative. All of this competitive fire without a true outlet for it, and probably thought this would be the avenue for it. Being an owner of a team, being on the highest level of basketball, you're right in that it's got to be immensely frustrating for him to have never been able to transmit his competitive desire and his ability to the team on the court and to make a winner. For Michael Jordan to be a loser at anything, I'd imagine, has to put a real pit in his stomach. And so you're right. It does seem like this could have happened a long time ago, as now we've seen LaMelo Ball dealing with a bunch of injury stuff. This season's been totally haywire because of all the surgeries that he's unfortunately had to undergo, which sucks. But this, you also brought up the point about him being rich. Did you see that new golf club that Michael Jordan made for himself?
The golf club or the course?
The course, the Grove 23.
Okay, yes. That's what I was about to say. In the competitive nature of the thing. Go ahead. I ain't gonna spoil it.
Oh no, so he made his own private golf club. Essentially, he got tired of having to wait for tee times at other places and made this incredible facility in the Jupiter area in Florida. I've seen. Let's see. Okay, he's got a member event coming up that included a bunch of different names: Mark Wahlberg, Wayne Gretzky, Ken Griffey Jr., John Elway. But seeing the tour of this facility, it's incredible. It looks exactly like a palace that Michael Jordan would build. And I'm sure at some point it's, hey, I can continue to own and try and put my heart and guts into this shitty basketball team, or I can just go play golf and gamble with people there and actually be able to influence the outcome events a lot more than I do right now.
Mike, I didn't know that it was an actual club. All I heard was he made a golf course where scientifically every hole is made to benefit his shortcomings of golf. If he hooks to the left, like there's a mound that kind of it basically who was it? I don't want to get this wrong, but a pro who's on tour. Maybe it was Jordan Spieth. Somebody went there and competed, and they said it's one of the hardest courses that they've ever shot on. But obviously, it's great for Michael Jordan. Like that's the level of competition that we're talking about here.
Yeah, it looks incredible. So honestly, if I were him and I was that rich, because he's probably going to be able to sell this for a pretty penny. Michael Jordan paid $275 million for a majority stake in the franchise. I'm sorry, in 2010. I said 2019 before and misspoke. He paid $275 million for that in 2010. We've seen the valuations for a lot of these franchises. I'd imagine he is going to make a shit ton of money for selling his stake in this and be able to go off and just add it onto that golf course. And so it'll be honestly, I was looking forward to LeBron and Jordan owning teams at the same time so we could have the LeBron-Jordan debate on an intergalactic level in perpetuity, world without end, amen. And now we're going to get the same thing that we've always had, which is one coming in after the other and doing a job that's going to end up being impossible to compare for many reasons.
Now I can't get out of my head LeBron buying the Las Vegas Aces before he does anything else.
It'd be a heady play. Brandon, let's get to the third. According to Nick Friedel, Jimmy Butler, guard for the Miami Heat, reportedly punished his teammates after a loss to the Magic in the locker room by blasting Nickelback in the locker room. Now, I feel like Tyler Hero was probably the only one that was really pissed off about that. I would have been pretty pumped. I'm sure even after a loss, I would have been trying to maintain composure, but been over by my locker with my mouth covered with, you have to do like the cover with the towel or cover with the jersey. I'd have been over there like, and they say that a hero can save us. I'm not gonna stay here and wait. I hold on to the wings of an eagle. Watch as we both fly away.
Yeah. Okay. Are they the ones that did the Rockstar song?
Yes.
See now. You know what I mean? There's some heat there. That means there's some elements that I listen. Anything in repetition is punishment, in my opinion.
Sure.
So at a certain point in time, unless you're a sociopath like I can be at certain points in time, but. He knows his team more than we do. He struck a chord. I imagine just like when he had his pickup basketball game with the Timberwolves back in the day, he got the right people's attention.
I'm gonna look and see because this was a couple of days ago. To the point about knowing your teammate, I just want to see what Tyler Hero's stat line was in the next game.
In the next game.
All right, here we go. Man. Looking at the Heat schedule, they lost to the Magic, and then the next game was against the Utah Jazz. Let's see the box score here and see who did well. Jimmy Butler had 24 points. The second leading scorer was Gabe Vincent and Tyler Hero tied with 18 points apiece. So he knew how to reach the right people, man. He knew Tyler Hero, among all other people in that locker room, would not fuck with Nickelback. You know what? Let's go back and check and see what was Tyler Hero's stat line in the game against Orlando. If maybe he was the one that they were trying to reach.
We got to be on the ID channel. This is investigative journalism.
Tyler Hero had 14 points in that game. So not too. Jimmy Butler had 38 points in that game. Tyler Hero was tied for the second leading scorer with Bam Adebayo with 14 points in that game. So got a 4-point uptick there. Maybe that's worth the Nickelbacking.
Yes, because I think after that game with 13 points, Jimmy Butler went to his locker. He's like, you know what? I'm not going to stand here and wait. You know, he goes,
hey guys, listen, we all just want to be big rock stars and live in hilltop houses driving 15 cars, and the girls might come easy and the drugs might come cheap, but we're all gonna stay skinny if we just don't go out here on the court and eat.
Ooh. And guess what? You got your contracts. You'll hang out in the private rooms.
If you were going to punish, if someone was going to punish you with a song in the locker room, Brandon, what would that song be?
Oh man, that's a difficult, because I'm going to expose myself, but
please don't.
One of the more difficult things about being at Notre Dame was just being drowned with Dave Matthews Band music. It was just
all right.
I'm telling you, Mike, I'm telling you, it was punishment. And I thought I was like being like, you know, when you like have the thing, you're like, okay, this just isn't my thing. No. At the Late Show with David Letterman, while I was working there's a thing called Last Stage, and the Jerry Foley, the director at Letterman, would put on a concert at the Late Show for all the acts that their first television, like the first time they were on television was on the Late Show. Yeah. They would come back and they would do a concert for their fans, and people would pay to come in. And as pages, we got to go to a lot of those. Mike, when we went to the Dave Matthews Band one, the way people around me were dancing and moving to the music that I was hearing in my ears, it was some Shutter Island shit. I was like, I have to get out of here. I don't know what's going on.
Bro, Dave does weird things to people. That was the coming of it.
It's something like in the core. Like it's like if you haven't had the specific juice in the like you missed it.
Brandon,
like you may your ears aren't ready for it.
Dave Matthews was the biggest concert that came to Connecticut, unsurprisingly, every summer. It was the first place I ever saw someone do cocaine. It was the first thing I saw getting out of the car in the parking lot as a 14-year-old in high school, a guy just loading up on coke to go listen to a 40-minute didgeridoo solo in Bartender. I saw a 20-person street brawl that included bottles getting broken over people's head. I had friends that were hit with rubber bullets in years past to break up fights at Dave Matthews, and I saw multiple people have sex up on the lawn out in Connecticut at what was the Hartford Meadows. It does the weirdest shit to white people. I can't explain it.
Mike, but I will say this, though. Like, people that I know have racist ideologies, I've seen them say some of the most glowing things about black people explaining members of the band. Like, the level of detail that they go into explaining these individuals in their band. And it's like, and they're black. It's so great. Like, and they're on this band, right? Like, you wouldn't think. I was like, yeah, I wouldn't think.
Dear God.
Anyways, throw it back to you, Mike. What music would you have to listen to for punishment?
If I was going to punish people, I'd play the Cars for Kids jingle.
1-877
cars for kids. KARS cars for kids. 1-877 cars for kids. Donate your cars today. Yeah.
Ooh. Was that all tri-state?
Yeah. They had like the alt rock version too. The thing that always pissed me off about the Cars for Kids TV ad was if you look in the ad, they do the rock version and they got these kids. They got a kid in a drum kit, kid playing bass, kid playing guitar. None of them are actually playing the instrument. Like, if you're gonna do the jingle as your thing, I'm sure there's enough kids with ambitions of getting into the music industry. Could you not have found kids that could actually wail a little bit? We've all seen School of Rock. There's talented kids out there that can actually shred.
Man.
Let them cook, and maybe that commercial wouldn't be such an abomination.
Shout out to Miranda Cosgrove. No, like that is unfortunate, Mike. That's a good angle though. Like the any of those commercials can really make someone go crazy.
Now, I would say, like, one that would get me motivated if you hit, like, the J.G. Wentworth 877 Cash Now.
Ooh.
The opera one.
877 Cash Now.
I have a structured settlement, but I need cash now.
Call J.G. Whitworth.
877 Cash Now.
I have enough annuity. I had to look up what they did at one point in time, like years into it. But Mike, let me say this, because it makes sense. Like, you know, if somebody dies, and you're like, I need my money now. Like, okay, but anyways, everybody's on the bus needs J.G. Whitworth riding public buses. Okay, listen to this. That Education Connection song, Mike.
Ooh.
When they start doing a remix of them, and that little Avril Lavigne girl start rapping about Education Connection. Right college for free, education, get connected for free at Education Connection. Like, that was the only thing that would start rivaling the J.G. Wentworth commercials.
If artificial intelligence ever takes jingles from us, that is when I will truly plant my flag in the middle of the robot revolution and destroy everything. If you take our jingles, we have nothing.
Listen, Mike, I know we're going to end this podcast, but I have to say this. AI has ruined my brain. Like, I don't know what commercial or show is real or not, but we're just watching this Jared Fogle documentary. My wife is watching, Michelle's watching it. It's like taking down a monster. It's like the person that snuck in and took down Jared Fogle. The amount of fast food I eat, and then Hulu I watch, and then the main person that helped take Jared Fogle down is from Sarasota, Florida. They keep showing shots of Sarasota. I was like, I don't know if this is an AI generated narrative that we're eating, because it's just taking in all of our IP and spitting back out something that we would watch for hours. But I don't believe anything I see anymore.
If you don't believe what you heard on this podcast, especially at the end, I would totally understand it. If you somehow enjoyed Brandon's simulation theory musings and horny mascots, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and review, leave us a 5-star rating, and check us out on the DraftKings YouTube channel. Everyone, make sure you get out and vote at Gojo Show on Twitter in the Some Shining Moments brackets, the music region. We will get back at it with the last two regions Monday and Tuesday in the first round. Thanks so much. Enjoy March Madness. We'll talk to you Monday. Boom. Money in the bank.